Albert Einstein was one of the world's most famous scientists. He was also a husband and a father. But first, he was a little boy. Do you want to hear more about him? Fantastic! Albert Einstein was born in Germany in 1879, but moved to Switzerland when he was 4 years old. He had a mother, a father, and a sister named Maya. That sounds like my name, but it is not spelled the same. When he was a little boy, Albert would focus on things he cared about, like building a house of cards 14 stories high. But when he wasn't interested in something, he was known to have a temper tantrum or two. Albert was fascinated by the compass his father gave him. Why does the needle always point north? He wondered. His curiosity grew and grew, just like he did. At school, Albert did not fit in with the other children. While he wanted to study how things worked, they wanted to play sports. He didn't like sports. His classmates laughed at him and called him names because of this and because he was Jewish. Albert did not get along with many of his teachers either. While he did well in subjects he liked, he simply ignored the subjects he did not like. One thing he really hated was memorization. Some of his teachers wondered if he was mentally challenged. They did not recognize how smart he really was. "He will never get anywhere in life," one teacher said. Albert ignored his teacher's prediction. Instead of letting it get him down, he simply focused on what he loved, math and science. Albert also loved music. He spent hours practicing his violin and playing music from his favorite composers. His home was often filled with the music of Mozart and Beethoven, played skillfully on a violin Albert named Alina. When he was 12 years old, Albert received a geometry book. He studied the shapes, angles, points, and lines, and then moved on to even harder books on mathematics. His friend Max Talmud, who was a medical student, couldn't keep up with all Albert was learning. Soon the flight of his mathematical genius was so high, Max said, that I could no longer follow. After his family moved to Italy when Albert was 15, he quit school altogether. But when he tried to enroll in the Polytechnic Institute, a college in Zurich, Switzerland, he was turned down because he didn't have a high school diploma. Albert worked hard and received his diploma and was finally accepted into the institute. After he graduated, he tried to find a job teaching at a university, but again, he wasn't able to do what he'd planned. In 1902, he got a job at the Swiss Federal Patent Office in Bern, Switzerland. This was an ideal position for him. As an Expert 3 class, his job was to study all sorts of new inventions. He fell in love, got married, and became a father. As he got older, his intelligence was recognized all over the world. But Albert Einstein didn't see himself as anyone special, and he certainly did not want fame. When newspaper and magazine writers asked him questions, his answers were simple. Once he said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." Another time he said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world." Which do you think is more important? Knowing things or having a good imagination? It wasn't just his knowledge and imagination that made Albert special. It was also his love of people, particularly children. He had warm eyes and a hearty laugh, and would often stop to talk to children in the street. If Albert heard of someone in need, he was quick to go and help them. One thing he hated most was when people were mean to other people because of the color of their skin or their religion. He also hated poverty. After he was famous, he often charged photographers to take his picture, and then he sent the money to feed children who were hungry and suffering. Even though he was one of the most famous scientists of the 20th century, he was mostly a humble, curious, and kind man. When people talk about him, they often refer to a discovery he made in 1905. E equals mc squared. E equals mc squared is a mathematical formula and is called the theory of relativity. It is an equation that shows the relationship between energy and matter. Even though he won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921, he often seemed like a child at heart. His granddaughter Evelyn Einstein said this about her grandfather: "He never lost his childlike awe of the universe, nor did he feel restricted by having to behave like an adult." In 1933, he moved to the United States, where he became a citizen 7 years later. Despite his wild hair, baggy clothes, and unkempt appearance,